Hello everyone and welcome to the Ceres Podcast. I am your co-host, founder and director of Ceres, Stelios, and today we're excited to introduce our new Podsquad team. Joining me is David Nicolaou from Auckley Friery, my new co-host for Read the News. We also have Petrou from Petrou Brothers, who will bring in a network of industry experts and previous winners of the Seafish Fish and Chips of the Year award for the Past Master series. Kelly Barnes from Krispies in Exmouth will share insights on business growth, leadership, fitness and mental health. David Miller from Millers in Haxby will join me for the Masterclass segment, where we delve into advanced training to help you improve your frying skills. You will have to decide who the co-host is on that one, me or him. Take a moment to go find the Ceres Podcast discussion group on Facebook. We are here to spice things up a little bit, but also it's a place where we can discuss everything on the podcast. Today marks our first roundtable discussion with the Pod Squad, a fun name for our vibrant group. As we navigate our first episode together, we're still getting used to the format and being a bit polite, but expect some lively debates as we settle in. We'd love to hear your thoughts and topic suggestions, so please don't hesitate to send them our way on the Ceres Podcast discussion group. This is more of a sort of house cleaning episode, so if you ever want to send in questions or topics, just go for it. Just tell us who they're for. This episode is sponsored by Ceres Pre-Dust No. 2, your secret to perfect battered fish every time. It enhances batter adhesion, extends oil life and infuses each bite with robust flavours including Madagascan white pepper. It's packed for freshness, free of allergens and proudly made in the UK. Discover the difference it can make to your establishment by visiting ceres.shop for next day free delivery across mainland UK. Remember to follow us on social media for the latest updates and join our mailing list through the link in the episode show notes. If you enjoy the Ceres podcast, please share it with your friends and colleagues in the industry and maybe leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Now, let's jump into today's conversation with the Ceres Podsquad. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to Technical Support.
Morning.
How can I help you all?
Is this a fraud?
We've actually done all right, considering. Like, there's 5 different computers in 5 different locations. I think we've done all right on this thing. What I would like to do is thank you all first for rescheduling this last minute because of my last minute machinery being delivered. So I wasn't aware that today, 100 grand's worth of machinery was turning up at our factory, or factory 2B, because it's still an empty room. So I got told last night that it was ready. It's been disassembled and ready. Although they sent me photos and it does not look disassembled at all. So that's going to be tricky unloading. So thank you very much.
Is it a car?
No, it's machinery, blending equipment. No, it's not a car. I wish it was a car. You know, I've been really looking forward to this for weeks, and only last night did I process a lot of my notes and make more notes. So if the conversation feels like it's going somewhere else, it's probably because I did most of my notes last night after you all went to bed. So, yeah. So this is our first episode as newly appointed and anointed Pod Squadders. And for those of you that are listening and you haven't caught up with the news, this will be released on the 1st of May. And essentially, the 5 of us, so we've got me, that's Stelios, David Miller, David Nicolaou, Kelly Barnes, and Petrou. We are all now the Pod Squad team. We are the new hosts of the Ceres podcast. So I'd like to welcome you all.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
Thank you.
Hello.
It's awkward, isn't it? Everyone waiting for each other to say thank you. But I think just say it. Say it how you feel, you know? Just... it's really weird for me sharing this space as well, because usually this was a place of solitude, and now it's there's lots of us. But I used to do pod squads on my own before as well. But I used to answer all the questions, and it was great. Like, a bit weird.
What made you change track, Stel?
Because I wanted to share this platform with friends or at least people that I like, even if it's not reciprocated, David Miller. And I just thought, you know what? Especially in season 7, I became a lot more opinionated, I think. So like, I was a little bit in the seasons previous to this, but I think in season 7, I just started to sort of show myself a little bit, you know, and I thought, wouldn't it be good to have other people's opinions whilst we're here?
He ran out of people who liked him.
There wasn't that many. You're all here.
That's what really happened.
There you go.
I don't really like
David Nicolaou tolerates me, and David Miller doesn't even tolerate me. So yeah, like what I think as of today, we I think episode 150 went out. I think we've got another 10 banked. Mark's done a few. Kelly's doing the first one in a few days, and then I think David Nicolaou's doing one with me next week. David Miller's doing one later on today with Mark. So I think that there's a lot of content, and I just thought, you know what? I want to keep the content going, but I also want people to hear from different people, and without my influence at all. Like, and I think, and I've listened to a couple of Mark's episodes, and I actually think like I've enjoyed the fact that I'm not in them. I'm a listener, and I'm also, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I probably won't listen to mine back because I was there when I recorded it. So I don't need to listen back to it, but I do enjoy listening to other people talking about our industry. So I think it's just a way of sharing the platform and turning it into, you know, a beautiful thing, as they say.
Well, in preparation for the podcast I'm doing today with David Miller, I listened back to your podcast with him, and I came away from it richer. Not just because I needed to make sure that I didn't record the same content, because my podcasts, as you know, are all about the experience of winning Fish and Chip Shop of the Year. But I wanted to know absolutely everything I could going into the podcast, and listening back to the stuff that you've already recorded is actually probably more enjoyable the second time round than it was the first. I don't know why that is, but I've actually listened to a couple of the podcasts, in particular the one with Alistair Horrobin, and I just came away from it with you just pick out more gold. There's just more in it the second time, third time round.
I think you miss things, don't you, Mark? You know, as it's been said, you maybe hold on to the last conversation and you're on to something else, and you're either driving or something. And I think if you really want to get the most out of a podcast, at least give it a second listen, especially when it's from people like ourselves, maybe talking about industry things. And now with 5 of us on board, I think it is something that you really probably need to listen to twice.
Yeah, we're all going to have a different style, and I'm seeking out anecdotes and listening to people's stories and their experiences. And from that, you're going to get different gold to when it's Stelios' type of podcast, Sleepy, which tends to be maybe a little bit more direct. There's more questions. He's prepared more. I'm prepared to listen. I'm not prepared to ask questions, and I try and tease the content out a different way. So
I'd like to think that my podcasting style is the cure to insomnia. I'd like to think that it puts people to sleep when they've been struggling for a while, and I think that's true. That's true. Don't do it while you're driving. But what I will say is, I'm not one to toot my own horn, but you've all got some big boots to fill. But I'm telling you now, mate. Like honestly,
So who does toot the horn still?
That's not a question for broadcast. Or shall I say the answer is not for broadcast. However, if you might not have all heard about this, but this is the type of sort of podcast boss that I want to be. So I am now like editor-in-chief, I would imagine. So you probably haven't heard of a chap called Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And he wrote a book about, I knew David would have heard of him. I knew that when I wrote it down. I just put in my notes, David would have heard of him. And he wrote a book called The Gulag Archipelago. And it's a story about his 8 years in the Gulag. Yeah. He heard a third-party account that when Stalin had rallies or talks, if anybody stopped clapping first, they would get sent to the gulag or shot. So what I'm basically saying is, guys, I'm going to be a bit like Stalin. Yeah. So whoever stops clapping gets the sack. Yeah.
Isn't that the point where people used to pass out and faint because they couldn't stop clapping? So they just used to collapse.
Yeah, so I see myself as a bit of a dictator, to be honest. Yeah, I do. You know.
There's a lot of it.
Well, I knew you was going to say that. I knew it was going to say yeah, dictator. So one thing I did want to mention, David Nicolaou, and we're going to figure out the best way to sort of separate the two Davids, is that we are not worthy to be in this chat room. You know this, David, because nor have I, mate. We are in the presence, the digital presence of three masters. You know, we should obey and observe and listen.
Well, I'm here to learn, aren't I? I'm good, but I'm not good enough, basically.
You're so full of shit.
Me or David? Thanks.
No, you.
Already, all I'm going to say is I feel like my sort of grand plan of being like Stalin isn't working because he just called me out on something and I can't actually send him anywhere. So it was sort of stuck here. So, no, joking aside, like I think that you're all, like, for me, and we're going to go into a little bit about what everyone's role is going to be. So actually, let's start with that now. So Mark Petrou hinted a little bit. Mark, you're going to be talking to your network essentially, and your network is initially going to be the couple that I've heard are quite sentimental. Looking back, you know, their sort of comeuppance in the industry or their role, but then also we've got what's called the Past Masters series, which is where you're going to be talking to ex-winners, hence why you're talking to David Miller today, and no doubt you'll be talking to Tim Barnes at some point, or Kelly Barnes, and just. But what I like so far is that you've gone to, I'm not going to say who they are because people will see in time, but you've gone to two old names, two people that I really respect. And they are true past masters because it's really, like, I think new people in the industry just wouldn't know who they are at all. So I'm looking forward to everyone listening to those. Kelly Barnes, again, you're going to be talking to your network. And I guess initially, until you find your feet, and tell me if I'm wrong, there may be more female-led at the moment. We don't want to call it a female-based podcast, but I just think as a female, you would lean that way, you know. So, but again, you know, I've said to you before, you interview who you want, but I think your focus, and tell me if I'm wrong, and we're going to go into a bit more of this shortly, is going to be a bit more fitness-inspired, mental health-inspired, you know, running a business and using all these sort of tools to be a better person in business. Have I got that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've learned a hell of a lot about myself over the last 12 months and learned how to put myself before my business, which I think is hugely important in our industry. I think a lot of people have suffered since COVID in hospitality and still continue to suffer. But yeah, I'm interested in hearing other people's stories about how they look after themselves, how they put themselves first. Because actually, I think if you can help one person listening, then that's a really cool place to be.
Kelly was listening to the Ceres podcast and a light bulb went off. And it wasn't because of anything I said, which is annoying. It was my guest at the time. So Kelly, you are going to tell us more about that, and tell us a little bit about how, you know, when I was talking to Elaine, something just clicked in you. You wanted to sort of do something.
So Elaine Bartho is a life coach, and Stel did a podcast with her, and we talked about doing a mental health podcast sort of pre-COVID. And basically, I was having loads of staffing issues, real sort of major staffing relationship going on that shouldn't have been going on. And I was like, I need to deal with this because these guys have clearly got issues. So I was explaining to her about my staff and how I needed her help. And I thought it'd be really good to get my team to do some life coaching. And I was literally stood in my kitchen looking out of my window, and all of a sudden a voice in my head said, "You're full of bullshit. It's you that needs the help." I was like, oh my God, like this woman could potentially just, I'm the one that needs the life coaching. I'm the one that needs to learn how to step away from getting so deeply involved in my team's relationships, not just personally, but at work as well. So I decided that I was going to do some life coaching. and I think that was back in 2021. So just still in the height of COVID, and she basically changed my life. It completely changed my life. It was what we talked about. One of the defining things that still sits with me today is she asked me to close my eyes and visualize myself on my deathbed. Not to be too
so cheery.
Let's not go down that route yet. We're not quite there. And but she asked me to visualize it, who was there, and what our last conversations would be. And the only conversation it still makes me feel a bit funny today, if I'm honest. The only conversation that I could come up with was work. Everything that I would talk about would be work. I didn't have a life outside of my business. I didn't know anyone outside of my business. And I just found that absolutely fascinating, to be able to sit there and just be absorbed by something that it was almost controlling me. And that was probably slowly, very painfully, just crippling me. And like I said, there's a bit of a lump in my throat, because actually that's still, I kind of let that feeling creep back in now and again, but I've learned very strongly to step back from it, which is why I'm kind of in the mindset that I am at the moment, that actually I want memories. I want to be able to look back on my life and think, oh, didn't I have a great time? Like, remember doing this? Can I remember doing this? And look what I've achieved. Because I don't think that work isn't an achievement, but I just don't think it should be the be all and end all of who we are as people. And I'd fallen into that trap very heavily. And probably because of the awards, I'm not blaming them, but because of the Fish and Chip Awards and the goal that I wanted to achieve. And I couldn't separate the two in my mind. Found it very, very hard to switch off when I was at home. I'd missed out on christenings, weddings, just so important birthdays. And even this weekend, it was my sister's 50th, and there was nothing. We nearly had a shop fire last week, guys. And that was on Monday, and I was due to go away on Thursday. And normally I would have been like, nope, I can't go away. There's no way I'd need to stay in the shop. And actually I decided that I was going to put things into place to make the shop reopen on Friday. So we were back up and running within 4 days. And yeah, there you go. I went away, and I had a great weekend, and I managed to enjoy my sister's special birthday, which was really, really important to me. And the shop's still standing.
I think sometimes, Kelly, that you think that your shop's indispensable. You can't cope without you. And the thing is, if you've got to look at the top, which you said, it always starts at the top. When everybody blames the shop's not doing this, it's not doing that. They blame everything, roadwork, staff, you name it, World Cup, you name it. Anything they will blame, but they never look at the top. And it always comes from the top. And if you're not a good leader, or you've let it go, and I know this because I've been there, you're only yourself to blame. And also at the end of the day, I've been very fortunate. I did all my missing birthdays, missing weddings when I was younger, when I was chefing and all that sort of stuff. And when I came back to the business. But then as life has gone on, I've made sure that I've had time for my family, always. Especially on a Sunday, whatever we did, we always, as they say, break bread. You know, we got together on a Sunday, whether it was for an hour or whatever, as long as we all sat together. And I think that's something I've always kept going in my family, and especially with my wife, Leslie. We've always, speaking to Stella last week, we've always gone out at least once a week out together and made that without a doubt. And I think now we're up to 4 nights a week, you know, but my life is really, really good, but I've only done that by learning. And you can get so swamped in it, you know, and it does consume. But I do believe that first year in winning the awards is the one that you need to be there, because that will set you up for the rest of your life. If you do it well, you'll have a fantastic business for a very, very long time.
Absolutely. And I think it has, you know, we were really dedicated in that year when we didn't, I think Tim and I, you know, as we all do, I think we spent, you know, at least the first 9 months in the shop. We didn't leave the shop. We lived and breathed it, and it was wonderful. And I will treasure those memories. And, you know, even when we were on stage and we took that trophy, and it's a feeling I can't explain, and I will never regret. I don't have any regrets about what we did to achieve that or after. I think it was more because I'm a bit of a mother figure, as you know, I'm sure a lot of women are in our industry. No disrespect to you gents, but I think that's the thing. That's just me as a person. I kind of mother my team, but I'd almost taken it to a level where I was just, I was getting too involved.
Do you think you were enabling them?
100%, absolutely. I had an open door policy, and I still do, but to a certain point, I even last week, or not even last week, probably a month ago, actually, thinking about time now flies pretty quick. I went to the toilet, got my breakfast, came back, and there's 2 members of staff sat in my office waiting to speak to me. And I'm like, I've got a pile of work to do. So now I have an appointment system if they want to speak to me. But I find that really difficult because I'm not that. I feel that makes me a bit pretentious. Like, who needs an appointment to speak to me? I'm just Kelly, It's.
You probably shouldn't keep your food in the toilet either. I'm not sure it's a safe place, to be honest. Like.
Just make sure you're flush with the lid down.
I think another thing as well, Kelly, I don't know if you do that. I always have the meetings in the morning before we start so we can get on with the day. There's nothing worse than doing that meeting at the end of the shift. And it's maybe not bad news, and that's another night's sleep you don't get. And you can clear the air, you're all fresh. The meeting. I've always found a meeting in the morning, the next morning, right, please sit down, what's up, let's have a chat, and then you can move on and get on with the rest of the day.
Absolutely. And I think the thing with my guys is I've got, I mean, it's like everyone in the industry has got all different varying ages of staff. But, I think in the last couple of years, a lot of people have gone through a lot of things personally. A member of staff of mine who's been with me 13 years, unfortunately broke up with her husband, and it got to a point where I was physically picking her up off the floor and taking her home. And I had to step back from that because actually that has a repercussion on me personally to be able to process. You almost end up processing somebody else's emotions. And I don't think I realised I was doing that. I was carrying everybody else's emotions on my shoulders. And that's the bit I found hard to let go of. I mean, I do. Yeah. Now I've got the most incredible manager. She runs the shop so efficiently, and it's so much more professional. And I think that's the thing is when you start out and it was just Tim and I, over time, it's had to become a more professional company. And I think I found that transition really hard. So you've got staff that were kind of old school, if you like, and, the banter levels were extreme when Tim and I weren't there, to what now is a professionally run company. And I find that really hard to do. I'm just Kelly from the Midlands. Like, I actually can't quite get my head around what we've created sometimes.
You want to grow a business to not need you physically, but mentally, that's probably hard to deal with. How do you all deal with that?
I've been able to do it. I think I've just learned over time that you can't be there all the time and you need a life. And I love life. I absolutely adore life. I love going out. I love going on holiday. And I think my mentor was my father. He was a great golfer and he was a member of, and David will know these courses, maybe Ganton, Moortown and Fulford, which is the premier golf clubs in Yorkshire. And he played them every week. He played all three every week. And I just thought, and he always said to me when I was younger, he said, David, you don't use your hands to make money. You use your brain. Simple.
When I was a lot younger and I was involved in a different business, we met up with a chap who used to run United Cinemas International, which was a Paramount company, I think. And he always used to say that there's a before, there's a during, there's always going to be an after. And if you drop dead tomorrow, someone's probably going to drag you out the back and carry on. Your business will carry on, And we are married to the fact that, these businesses are an extension of our personalities. But, they do become all consuming and you do get very obsessed and, it's very difficult to separate yourself. But, for the sake of your health, I mean, we've dropped Sundays and Mondays. We weren't getting any rest, really. You were just recovering from Saturday night and then you were back in on Monday morning. So we thought, well, just drop Sunday, Mondays and see what happens. And, things sort of migrated to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we didn't lose a great deal. But, the mental health of the staff went through the roof. Everyone got a couple of days rest. It was, and when it's busy, it's busy. You're under pressure, and especially things go wrong. It's even more pressure, and you have to disconnect from that. You have to find a way to do it. So fitness and health, it's really important.
Earlier on in my career, I used I used various methods to take the corners off the end of the day, be it alcohol, whatever. And when I was a younger man, I used to go through a working day and then play just as hard as I worked when I was out of work. And I don't need to elaborate on that. As I've got older, I think you just come to value time as the real commodity, not money. And you get to a point where money doesn't become a consideration. Not because you've got enough of it, but because that the time is running out. And for me, I like to go home whistling every day. I like to laugh every day. I like to take joy from every day. And I'm lucky because I work in an industry where work doesn't really feel like work. But after having listened to everyone else, for many, many years, I used to take on everybody else's problems because you feel obliged to as a boss. And I still get a bit of that now. I've got a car that I own just so that when a member of staff's car breaks down, they've got a car they can use. Not many bosses do that, but I've got a vehicle that's insured for anyone to drive, and it's always out. Someone's always got a car problem, and take the Mini. So I try to be a good boss, but I don't give a lot of my headspace to it. So I can support with goodwill, without emotionally. I don't carry people's problems around. If they bring a problem to me, I'll offer. I'm a solutions person. I don't really do hugs and stuff. It's just like, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? If I can support you in any way, let me know, and then I move on. I don't carry that around. So in my own life, I've got really good balance. I don't work too hard, and I'm really good at delegating, so other people make me look good. But for other people's problems and how I take care of my staff, I've managed to keep that at arm's length. As I've got older, I've got better at it. That's it.
When it comes to dealing with people, if they come to me with a problem, one of the first things I'll ask them is, do you want a vent or do you want a solution? Because I have figured out that some people actually don't want a solution. They just want to vent.
That's good.
And a friend of mine's a therapist, and she told me this, because obviously she's a therapist, so she wants to know that answer. So I know a lot of people that will come to me, they just want to go on about it and on about it and on about it. But my brain just quickly goes into solution mode. Well, here, what if you try this? What if you try that? But some people aren't ready to find the solution. That's the truth. They just want to vent, And so for me, I always try to figure out that. One question I've got for you all before we move on is, how long will you take pain for a problem that's in your business? And I'll give you an example of what I mean here. So anyone that knows me will know that this is a silly part of something I did when I was building our factory. So, not our factory, sorry, our fulfillment centre. So when we're building our fulfillment centre, we had this cherry picker in there. And I wanted to move it. The people that left it just left it in the middle of the room next to the racking. It was really annoying. And I wanted to move it so I could get other things done. And I ignored everything on it. I ignored the fact that you shouldn't move it. I wasn't trained for it. I just thought, I want it out of my way. So I get the remote control thing that's on it, and I then attempt to move it. And as it moved, I didn't move something crucial. I didn't move my feet. Yeah. So that moves, it goes over my foot. I bust my foot massively. Turns out that actually, even because I didn't wear steel toe cap boots, that actually saved my foot, because a 2.5 ton cherry picker with steel toe cap would have probably crushed my foot. I put this down to my nature of, I need to get a job done, I'll just do it. And yes, it was a bit stupid, and I wasn't sleeping a lot at that time. And then 6 months later, I jump off the forklift, and I felt like a tinge and like a weird sort of feeling. And now, even a year later, that feeling has, I think, become a fractured foot. Yeah. And I think that's all back to that, because we are willing to put ourselves through physical pain and emotional pain to build our businesses. How long are you willing, how long, when you're going through a really stressful time in your life, are you willing to do that for?
I think 20 years ago for me, I'd have put it forever. Now I've learnt what I've learnt in this last 20 years, which has been a massive thing for me. If it's upsetting me, upsetting people, there is always a solution. Communication is usually the way you get through it. And sometimes you have to let things go. You have to let people go if it's not working for you in your business.
You're looking back when we first started sort of 20 years ago, and we put up with so much rubbish that they just wouldn't accept it of people now. Not only that, it's just the effect it has on the rest of your life as well, and the rest of the staff. But you're right, David's right. You have to nip these things in the bud, because it becomes a thing then, and then that thing grows and grows and grows. So you have to be on top of these things, and you can't tolerate. I mean, what specifically are you thinking about? Bad behaviour or people's attitude?
One of the things I was referring to specifically about me is the way I was. I remember when we set up the fulfillment centre, there was 4 to 6 months where I was going in at 4 a.m. and leaving at 6 p.m. because I had to set all the controls, I had to set all the measures. I'm one of these guys that needs to understand every part of that business. Doesn't mean I want to do it all forever, but I need to understand it, because I don't want a staff member ever coming to me and saying, you don't know how to do this. You can't tell me. Yeah. So I think first the internal question is, how do we keep ourselves in check?
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I think as you get older, your tolerance for bullshit gets much, much shorter. As I say, the stuff I used to put up with 20 years ago, I would just sit them down, call them out and say, look, this is not acceptable and I don't want you to do this anymore. But, and the other thing about having sort of time for other things is that years ago, I learned to fly. And I was turning up for my flying lesson, and I was exhausted because I'd been on shift till sort of 11 o'clock the night before. And I remember the guy that was teaching me that day. It was an ex-British Airways pilot, and he used to fly 747s, and he'd retired, and he was this very plummy guy. And I was tired, and I was ham-fisted, and I was throwing this plane around, and it was really uncomfortable. And he said to me, he said, are you tired? Yeah. Well, your tiredness kills when you're doing this game. He basically says when you're flying, you need to make love to the sky, not F it. And so I just, when I landed, I just thought, you've got to get yourself in order. You can't do this. There's only so much your body's going to take in terms of fatigue and trying to do other things in life. So, like we're back to what Kelly was saying, you have to find that balance. You have to find, and the problem as well is that we have, I think, is that society, I think at large, defines us by what we have and what we drive and what we do and how much. We've had this conversation before in the WhatsApp group that we've had. It must be the saddest thing if your family's memory of you is how much you earned. And it's just, there's got to be more to life than stuff, and that's all it is. It's stuff. And it's working your arse off for a depreciating asset that's going to be worth, 10% of what it was in 5 years' time. Is it worth it? Is it worth killing yourself for that? Great if you can afford it. Great if you can, if you've got an excess of wealth that you can just splurge on these things. But people that get themselves into enormous amounts of debt and put themselves under enormous amounts of pressure for stuff, to me, is incredibly sad. And you're right about making memories. That's what the legacy you need to leave is the things you say and do, not the things you have.
I don't want to minimise what you just said, David, but I don't worry about what my family think when I die, because if I die today, they've got 100 grand's worth of blending equipment turning up later, so they can do what they bloody want. I really don't care.
I mean, that's a cheap funeral, right?
No, I think the main thing is I know that I will probably, joking aside, and I don't know if Mark gets this to some degree. I think we all are to some degree. I think I've taken years off my life because of the effort I've put in to do what I do.
Yeah, but you are knocking off the incontinent and dribbly years, so that's not too bad.
That is true.
It's coming off the end. It's not coming off the beginning, so you're all right.
When I see the transformation that Kelly's made over the last few years, or the last year, let's say. And, I see David Miller, who really looks after himself. And is that just a different mindset? Do I need to bend my will? And
How rude. You'd not to mention me. I run a bath at least twice a week. Weights. Let's talk about weights. Half an hour my pizza took last night to arrive. You can't just pick out two people and say, they're super fit.
Is it up,
he's
down,
been
one,
gagging
two,
to get
then
all
the
his
other
dad
side?
jokes out. And his kids don't listen to him no more. That's why.
1, 2, up, down, 1, 2, up, down, then it's the other sock, is it?
Yes. How rude.
I think what you're saying, Stel, is I think, not to, as my Tim took the piss out of me quite a lot when I first started training for the triathlon. He was like, oh, you're an athlete. Oh, you're an athlete. I think what it has done is completely changed who I am in terms of I get up, I train 7 days a week for half an hour a day, and it's become a habit. It's just consistency, and it's just become a habit. Whatever comes out of that, I've got my first triathlon on Sunday. If that's the last one I ever do, then I've achieved something. But mentally, I'm so much better. Even yesterday, I did not want to go out. I did not want to get off my sofa at 5:30 in the evening, and I dragged myself out. I've now dragged my kids out with me. Charlie now goes to the gym 5 times a week and plays rugby. Tim's now, he got kind of a little bit competitive, and he was like, well, if she's doing it, then I can do it. And our whole, if you were to look at our family now compared to what they were 2 years ago, it's like, who are they? We were the ones propping up the bar, not a gym bar, an actual bar.
Without trying to take credit here, I've technically saved the Barnes family. I can see what she's saying. She doesn't want to say it, but she means it.
It's a very circuitous route, isn't it?
So
yeah,
how do you? I'm lazy. I work like a dog. So but personally, when it comes to going to the gym, I will find a million reasons. But if I had to get to the warehouse tomorrow at 4 a.m. to unload an Arctic, you wouldn't stop me. I wouldn't need an alarm clock. I'd be out the bed at 4:45 or 4:20. I'd be downstairs making myself a coffee. I'd go to work. However, if you said to me, you've got to get up at 7 a.m. and go to the gym, so 3-4 hours later, I'd be like, well, it's slightly windy outside. Oh, I just saw a leaf fall on the floor. Oh, I've got to start work at 11 today. I'll find you a billion excuses. My wife knows them all. And she'll say to me, you've got to just do it. And I'm just like, I know, but I can't trick my brain sometimes to do it. Yet for work, I don't need to trick my brain for work, because I almost need to shift a little bit of the power that work has to getting fit, if that makes sense.
But isn't the fact that your work is, the goals are immediate? That when you unload the Arctic, that you've got that little dopamine rush of completing that job. Whereas if you go to the gym, you ain't going to see any results for months and months and months.
I'm not going to lie, I'll do half a job. I'll put it in the loading area and let Matty sort it when he comes in. So I'm only doing half the job. So it's sort of immediate.
Half the dopamine then.
There are lots of other ways of keeping fit without going to the gym. The gym can be very, very monotonous. There are people there that are incredibly fit that could put you off straight away. And that does become a routine. But there are ways of keeping fit that can slot into your lifestyle very easy. Now, whether that's going for a walk, and I'm not saying going to the shop, you actually plan a route out, and you might do that at a brisker pace, or you do running like Mark does. Is it twice a week you do that, Mark? I can't remember what you said now. Obviously a lot of people know that I cycle a lot. Have for about 20 years now. And I absolutely love it. And the great thing about that for me is you get out in the countryside, especially where I live, and you see the seasons change and all that, and that keeps you focused. And there are other ways of keeping fit, and you don't have to go to the gym. And I think that, the best thing is to get out in the countryside, not around where you live. Make an effort, get out to there's loads of walks. There's so many walks out there. Buy a book and do a few walks. You don't have to do a 50-mile walk. But it's a start, and you'll start to enjoy it. When I used to go walking with Les, we used to take a bar of chocolate and lift a bottle of red wine, and then find a rock, sit, have a little bit of chocolate and red wine, and just look at the countryside and start again. But there are ways of keeping fit and mentally fit. You don't have to go to the gym.
To start with little changes.
getting back to introductions, because obviously we got sidetracked, which is great because we love a bit of a sidetrack. We also have, for those that haven't figured it out, David Miller, who is also joining us. And what David is going to bring into the table is a bit of a masterclass. So we're going to be talking about, me and David are going to be in a joint podcast. It's going to be very operational. We're starting off with a Q&A, which will always exist. People can send in questions. We'll take questions anonymously if people are embarrassed to put their name to it. But essentially, it's two people that just understand the operation side of the business. And we won't always be right, but we'll think about things. And on top of that, we'll start breaking down topics and we'll start talking about like oil management and so on and so on. It's not there to replace physical training, because if you didn't know before listening, you probably won't know just by listening. You'd probably need a professional like David Miller or Mark Petrou, who have done training over the years, to show you how to get the best out of something. So I think, if anything, I see it just as, again, the operational side of the podcast, where we can literally delve into a few operational issues or technical issues. Would you agree with that, David Miller?
Yeah, I would. I think you've got to listen to what people say. The thing is, if you ask a question sometimes on the social medias, you'll get 1,000 answers. And some are right, some are wrong, and people get very confused. And I think the training that's out there is really, really good. It's the theory. If you know the theory, you can always go to what we call best practice. And if you divulge or you deviate from that, if something goes wrong, go back to best practice. It usually puts itself right. But a lot of people are self-taught. They may be taught from somebody that bought the shop off or something like that, and they might have bad habits already. So they know no different. And sometimes you have to open your eyes up and look at what everybody else always said, because you might not be right. And just one little change can have a dramatic effect on that end product that's coming out, that's being sold to your customer. And to me, you can have the best fish, you can have the best chips, the best fryer, the best shop. At the end of the day, if that oil's not in good form, you're wasting your time. It's the key to everything. And what I'd like to bring to the table is what I've philosophized myself, is attention to detail, believing in your product, and really trying to be the best you can. Every time you step in that shop, you step on that range, be the best you can. It's like all my fryers, at least we try and let them have a break before they go onto the range, because I want them at the top of the game every time, because customers are interested in our problems behind that metal. They just want the best product they can. So what I'd like to bring to the table is to inspire people to maybe become the best they can. And again, I suppose that's a mindset thing, but everybody can be the best they can. And through that is maybe tips and a bit of training. And once you see a little difference, you go, do you know what? That has made a difference to what I'm doing. What else can I do? And I think that is so important, especially in your business, because it's your customers at the end of the day. And we've all had it. We've all had them 2-star reviews, 3-star reviews. They always come through at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. That's your night over again. That's business. But I get involved in the shop with that, and the whole team take it personally. And we try and underpin that all the time. So if we've done something, we hold our hand up and go, right, how do we stop this leaking again? There'll always be another one a bit further up, but that's just business. And if I can help people in any way by just things that I say or whatever, then that's what I want to do. And I think that's mainly what our goal is, to make people think a little bit more. And if we can inspire people to become better through these little tips, it will never replace formal training. The training schools out there are brilliant. As a lot of people you know, I've been the trainer at the Federation, National Fish Fries Federation, for 7 years, retired yesterday. And I've learned every time I've been there. Whoever I teach, I learn something. Nobody knows what it is, but I promise you it's in my shop the next day. So for those that are listening and maybe going to tune into our podcast, remember, you can always learn something.
Well, one question I had for you and Mark, because you're both sort of embedded in the training side, is like, why do you think some people are averse to training? So initial training, number one, and then why are they averse to, do you think, or some people averse to refresher training? Because I think there's two different types of training out there. There's training for, well, I'm just about to invest 200k into this thing. And then they're like, well, I don't need training. Well, that's a load of crap. Who needs training? I've got a good range, let's say, for argument's sake. So if we deal with why do you think some people tend to avoid training? And Mark, you go first on this one because David's just spoke. So
first of all, I think David would agree with me that neither of us try and make clones of ourselves. When we deliver training, we deliver best practice, and we use the science as the foundation to deliver that training. So we'll talk about about any particular element of fish frying from a technical perspective, first of all, so people understand. It's not just about knowing how to do it; it's knowing why certain things happen. And so that's the point that me and David start from. And I think when people come into the industry, or they've been in the industry for a while, and they come across somebody who is technically more understanding of exactly what's going on in a pan or with the raw materials, they don't fear it. They reject it because it doesn't work for them in their shop with their pans and their equipment, and that's fine. You know, the real answer to this business is making sure that what the customer gets exceeds their expectations. But there are ways that you can do that and be more profitable and be more consistent and be able to identify when things aren't going right. And there are ways to just wing it every single day. And I think the importance of training is that it actually improves the welfare of your business in more than just one way. It means that you end up wasting less raw material. It means that your product is more consistent. It means that you are more profitable. You are more knowledgeable. And it means that you can actually filter all of that knowledge down into your workforce and give you that better balance that we were talking about just before. So anyone that's resistant to training is perfectly entitled to be that way, but there is so much more to gain from training than just having a better product. You know, it is about understanding, making your business less leaky, making it future proof, and there are so many other things to gain from training. So I think people are resistant because what they've got works, and they really just don't want to rock their boat. David, does that sound right to you?
I don't mean to be insulting, but I think some are lazy and think they know it all, and just.
I was trying to be a bit more diplomatic.
That's not the point, is it? Because it's a really important thing, and people do get lazy and think, well, that's just the way you do it. And when you do come into people and maybe come for a refresher course, and they go, what? And I always say, you know it, you've just forgotten to do it, or it's too hard. People will always take a shortcut, and that shortcut will always catch you out, especially when it comes to fish and chips. Absolutely catch you out, and it'll always catch you out.
You taught me that lesson. You taught me that lesson already.
And it will always catch you out, and there only is one way to do it, and to me, it's the correct way. And the reason it's called best practice is because it is the best way. Yes, you can put little bits on the top of that, but as long as that foundation is best practice, then you will always have a good chance of producing really good fish and chips. There are other factors that come into that, but that's the foundation.
I sometimes wonder if you're Lloyd's Bank and you're giving someone 200k, or they're putting a charge on their property, would it not just be beneficial if they said, well, look, we're going to give you this money, but you've got to show us a city and guilds, for example, or which is the equivalent if you did training? Because if you're going to open a hairdresser's and you're getting a loan, you've got to have a city and guilds to some degree. You can't just say, hey, I'm a barber. Where's the proof coming from that you are a barber? So they are attaching something there to a trade qualification. Whereas obviously the bar is low in the fish and chip industry. You can buy fish and chip leases for 20, 30k at the moment. How long that's going to be around for, nobody knows. And what sort of businesses they are questionable at that level, without being rude. Would it be better if the bank said, we're going to give you this loan, but it's a prerequisite. We can only give you this loan if you've either worked for somebody for an X amount of time or you go to one of the training schools and you show us a certificate. I'm surprised that the banks would give money away without even protecting their investment somewhat.
Great idea, Stel, but how is that feasible right across everybody who buys a business? Great idea.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just think, most other businesses, though, people are usually buying with some form of experience or expertise, whereas fish and chip shops traditionally has always been something people get when they retire over the years, in the olden days, or if they were made redundant from a job, they'd go, I'll get a chip shop with my money or whatever. Like B&Bs were very similar as well. You'd see people retire and be like, oh, I'm going to have a B&B. And I think that whole marketplace has changed as well now. And I think nowadays you do have to be a bit more business focused, have a bit of a business mindset, which is my thought.
I think the simple fact is it's two products, isn't it? It's a fish, a chip, potato and a fish. How hard can it be? It can't be that hard, can it?
So you think that's the problem? The misconception is that how hard can it be?
Yeah, I do, yeah. But it isn't. There's nature's working against you all the time. And it's how to understand nature, because it's two natural products. And you have to understand the basis of it. And as Mark quite rightly says, there's a lot of science goes behind it. I mean, I can talk for about 2 hours on a potato if I want to.
David, Kelly, talking to training from a non-trainer's point of view, so you would be the trainee. What sort of training have you guys had over the years? Is it something you look at, whether it's retraining or different types? I'm not just about frying training, but all sorts of training. Is it something you both have undertook?
10 years in, we went to the KFE training school. I always remember Paul Williams saying, what are you doing here? Like, why are you here? I don't think Mark was there that day, but Gordon and Nigel were. And we came away with a different way to cook our peas. It was something small, but it completely changed the way we did things. And we still use that method today. I kind of agree with Mark and David. You can never stop learning. Everything we teach our staff, we teach them the why. And now I go back and assess those guys and make sure that the people who are training my new teams are teaching them the why. And I think if anything's ever not right in your business, you kind of it comes back to you. If you're having problems with training staff, or the staff aren't quite getting it, or they're not talking to the customers in the right way. I've got 5 trainees on Friday night underneath. It's me, 5 trainees and a couple of other team members. So I think it's so important that they get to see you in your environment and understand what you're doing and how and why. Why do we scoop the chips like that? Why do we do this? It's so important. I personally haven't done any training for a long time. And I suppose that's because I don't know where to go, if I'm really honest. I did a little bit when we did our talk after we won Fish and Chip Shop of the Year. I went back, and I think David was there that day, and we did a little bit. It was quite nice to see inside the NFF training school. And I do believe, as David says, that best practice is the way, but what best practice is to one store is different to another, and that's when the variances come in. And I was always a kind of a great advocate that actually, I'm not here to slate the NFF or anything like that, but I think one of the things that they lacked, and I think that should have happened, is that a mentoring system should have been in place for all those people like you're talking about that go and get loans for hundreds of thousands, or people who sell their houses to go and buy fish and chip shops. A mentoring system so that they can kind of then buy into that over a period of time, over a year or whatever it is. I just think that's the way to go, to keep up that training year on year. But yeah, personally, I haven't had any training for a long time. And, I'm perfect as I am, so.
Mr. Nicolaou?
When we refitted the shop in 2018, smashing new Florigo, beautiful shop. And then we were still cooking through chips. And I could not for the life of me nail Twice Fried. I wanted to go Twice Fried. I couldn't nail it. So I went on to the NFF training school. I'm in Doncaster there in Leeds. It made sense. And I just thought, I'll just sit and listen for a few hours, and I know all this. It was brilliant, to be honest. Lots of little things woke me up, and we came back and we changed a lot of things. It was really valuable, and I'd been doing it at that point 15 years, and mostly right. In my defence, I should say mostly right, but there was a few little tweaks and tricks that you thought, oh God, a little bit of ha moments. So it's definitely worth it. I mean, but we've kind of when we plan the refit, we started stripping everything back to first principles. So we what batter we're using, why do we do it like this? What time do we make it? What's the best way of doing this? So we'd done a lot of the work already, and probably in my arrogance, I thought, well, we don't need any training. We don't need any training school. We can do it all ourselves, and it's so nice to sort of step into a different environment that's not your shop, because it takes you out. It takes you out of that comfort zone, and you have to start thinking about what you're doing as well. So, yeah, it was really valuable. I thought, but I haven't had any refresher training at all since. But we've been sort of obsessing with the awards, so we've had. We've been on top of everything anyway, so it's not as if we've let things relax.
One thing that happens a lot is whether they're new students, brand new to the industry, or already experienced fryers, the most common thing that happens at the training facility I work at is people come looking for that perfect batter recipe. The one that's like the holy grail. When you make them realise that water comes out of a tap at different temperatures at different times of the year, and there's a different hardness or softness to the water wherever you are in the country, and the temperature and ratios and mix times and flow rates and all of these things go in, there is no perfect batter recipe. It doesn't exist. The perfect batter recipe is the one that makes your customer smile. But once you understand the science behind it, then you need to be able to replicate it day in, day out at your site and keep reproducing that perfect product. And as a trainer, your job isn't to gift people the perfect batter recipe. It's to empower them with knowledge and confidence to be able to do it themselves. And that's what you do as a trainer, is if you understand all the things that can go wrong and how it can go right and what all the variables are, then you can go away and find your perfect batter recipe. And as a trainer, that's all you're really doing, is you're not teaching them how to make the perfect batter. You're teaching them all the tools and skills and confidence they need to make the perfect batter.
If I can just jump back in there as well, sorry. From when we came back from David's training session, we then started nailing all those little variables down. We started realizing the variables and nailing everything down. So we did have a consistent product. And then from that point, we seemed to start winning things. We had Fry 50 every year that we've just got it this year, and we started getting into the awards, so top 10 2023 2024. So yeah, it is about that consistency, and it's just being aware of those thousands of variables. Then you can do a lot to water in the fridge, flow cups, stuff like that, little things that you just empowers your staff to be really, really consistent, and that's hopefully consistently good. And that's the name of the game.
I think David Miller's surgery, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be like an open surgery, isn't it, on Ceres podcast? I think it's going to be such a really usable tool. People will listen to it, won't admit that they've listened to it, learn from it, won't admit that they've learned from it. And I always come away richer when I spend time with David. So,
David, when you're doing the batter masterclass, whose batter will you be using? Yeah, as a professional.
Well, as a professional.
Is there any brands that you're favouring on this?
As a professional.
Open worms everywhere.
No, as a professional.
I've just cancelled David Nicolaou's contract. He's gone. He's out. One thing I'd love to ban is the words. We have... No.
Sarcasm.
No, I'm not really Stalin. No, I'd love to ban the words, we have always done it this way. Like when I read the groups, I always see, I've got a problem with something, and then they say, we've always done it this way. Fish and chips comprises, and I remember spending a lot of time with Nick Miller when he first joined David's business, and David was really good to me. And he let me and Nick really work together and help to get him up to speed, because I think David knew what he was doing, but at the same time, it's good to have a bit of outside influence. And I remember saying to Nick Miller, fish and chips comprises of some set parameters, but those parameters constantly move. Mark alluded to it to some degree. Your batter's breaking down, your oil's breaking down with every fry, or if it's sitting there. The fish is getting a bit more moist as it's sitting there. So there's all these parameters that are constantly moving. So when I see people in the group say, we've always done it this way, they don't know what that means. They just think they've always done it a certain way. Like Mark says, the temperature at the tap today is going to be different to the temperature at the tap tomorrow. And that's just a very basic thing. So for me, it's like you almost need to ban that sort of thinking, because, we have always done it this way means nothing. For example, I'm trying to think of his name now. Lewis Hamilton wouldn't drive around the track and say, well, I've always done it this way. Because again, you've got to change with whatever the situation is. And I think for me, best practice is actually it's a fluid situation. So the best practice is like an umbrella term, and lots of things sit under it. So for me, that's the key thing here, is that people understand that there's no such thing as I only run my batter at X flow rate, and I've got a tester and I only run it at Y, and I only do this at that, because you're just never going to run a business that way. What you've got to have is the ability to create a great product, like David Nicolaou says, for 99% of the time, which is what Mark and David teach people. So for me, I think that people listening to it will feel inspired to have some professional training. And we've got two people here, and when I'm busy, Mark may jump in and help David on those episodes, because, they're both sort of training experts.
I love it. I love helping people, passing people stuff on. And I'm not always right. And as I say, I learn things. And I think going back to what David Nicolaou said, is actually getting out of your shop and going somewhere separate. There's nowhere. You won't do that in your own shop, because you paid for that fish, you paid for them chips. You won't throw stuff away. So going to somewhere where it's like a test kitchen, you can take that product and try something that you've never thought about, rip it apart, look at it and go, well, that's rubbish, let's do it now. Come on, then let's get that batter and just take it down another 5 seconds. What happens then? Do you know what? That's so much better than what I thought. It was really good, but look at what we've done now. And that is why it's great to go away from your shop with your notebook, your pen, and your mind open. It's got to be open. If your mind's not open, it will never happen. If you can't be ready for change, then it won't happen. You've got to go with an open mind. And going to those training schools where it's like a kitchen, where you can do anything you want, no pressure, nobody customers, and you really can analyse that product, you really learn a lot.
Yeah, totally. You don't want to experiment on your customers, and you don't want to use up your own stock doing it. There's a lot to be said for that. I prefer to train in a training environment than going to somebody's shop, but sometimes that's what the customer wants.
I think there's pros and cons to both. I think that if I'd done training, let's say, and I'd met you both at a training school, but then I saw the value, as what Kelly said, to have the ongoing support. And that might mean you two coming to my site once a month and going through metrics, and whether it's operational or back end. I know I work with a lot of groups, a lot of chains, and the one thing they have is a real strong back end, in the business that is monitoring all the systems. They have a lot of systems. So whereas with fish and chips, there is no systems. People just, like we said, we'll get fish, get spuds, put them together, put them in the pan. So, and I was talking to the guys from Papa's at the awards, and they were saying that, that they see the biggest weakness with fish and chips is how hard it is to create consistency across multiple sites. And I think there's something to be said for that.
And I go back to what Mark said is, like if you prefer to be training away from the shop. And you have probably found this, Matt. They're never ready, are they, if you go to the shop?
Too many distractions.
And you've got your brain ready, you've got your brief, you know exactly what you're going to say when you go in, and you get there, half the staff haven't turned up.
Spud guy turns up, Fishman turns up.
Coffee. Yeah, and something's broken, or somebody's cleaning something, or painter's there, and it's just, for me, it's never right. It's always late, and your pattern's gone, hasn't it, Mark? You know, you've got your flow, haven't you? And all it needs is that little bit of disruption, and I'll get on the train coming back and go, I didn't say that, you know. And it's because you're not focused because the shop's so busy.
I was going to say, like, you know, I kind of joked about the fact that, you know, I've not been outside and into training schools, but kind of listening to these guys talk, I suppose, yeah, you almost forget what you've learned over the last 20 years. There's been so many tweaks to the business, you know, even things like putting, you know, water in the fridge and, you know, timing the batter. Like we used to time to 45 seconds, and that is still what people do, but now we do it differently. And I think you forget all the little changes and tweaks you've made to make your business perfect. And I think one of the biggest changes for us personally was we listened to a book, and I don't know whether you guys have, Michael Gerber, the E-Myth series, I think it was called. That completely changed the way we ran our business and made us look at the business differently. And I think even not just physical help, but even sometimes looking outside the box and looking at self-help books and, you know, business books and things as well, and learning from those can make you look at your business completely differently. So yes, I have learned a lot over the last 27 years.
So one person I haven't introduced yet is David Nicolaou. We've left him for last. And
really.
David has been on the Ceres podcast. And one thing I'll say is that he was, for the format we did, which was the Read the News format, which I absolutely adore because it links our online podcast with the online articles. Because what we do is sit down and we talk about the articles. And David did one with me, probably was it January, February, I think.
9th of January. I was looking at the email the other day.
And you came very muchly prepared, and also you were quick-witted, which I love about you. If anybody's been listening, they'll know that you're quick-witted. And also you're not afraid to challenge certain thoughts, and you'll challenge me on my thoughts, and I like that. So that's why I wanted to make you a permanent fixture for a trial period.
Permanently temporary or temporarily permanent?
That's not permanent, is it? A trial period.
I'm just giving myself a little wiggle room to back out here because I know how David will keep me on my toes.
Oh, I hope so. I like to think I'm the contrarian in the room as well. I always like to look for the antithesis of something. You know, I always like to see what the opposite is and dig under and you know. I used to do a lot of that in my previous job, so it was very research and very learning and continuous development. So it was, yeah, it's fun. It's fun to get under the skin of headlines.
And you're not just going to say yes because I said so either, are you?
I hope not.
Well, I think that's the key thing here is that what we're trying to do is have fun, have a laugh and joke. People that are listening might know us, they might not know us. We want them to know us by the end of a few of these episodes. Like one thing I've really enjoyed so far with two of you, and I haven't done it with the other two yet because Kelly's this Friday and David's next week, is going out with you all. And I already preempt that I'm going to enjoy it with you two guys as well, Kelly and David. But going out with David in York and Mark in Ely, and then Kelly in Exeter. And where's that place we're going to, David?
Cusworth Hall.
Going out, what I've noticed is that I've known David Miller for about 10 years. I've known Mark Petrou for since I was 17, so 23 years. So, 18 or so. So what I've noticed is that I learned so much about being with you guys, just going out and taking photos, because there was so much we're talking about and we're just getting some fresh air. The weather was nice for both of you, and I hope it is for the other two. And just going out there, just getting to know you guys, because I have known you, but this is a different level, because when you're out there and you're taking photos and we're constantly talking, I don't know, the conversation just flowed and it was great. And I was actually surprised at how many people know David Miller in York. It's not even his hometown, like, right, it's a city. But yeah, we're walking around and it's like, you're right, David. It's like, fuck's sake, mate, we're trying to take photos here. Like, oh, you're right, David. It was all right, David. It's like, you know, like we're going to a restaurant to get something to eat and people are like, oh, David, we're over there. And I'm like, bloody hell, like, we're in like York. It's a city. It's not like we're in Haxby across the road at the coffee shop. So, you know, that was weird. It was like going out with a celebrity.
Yeah.
You were surprised how much fruit you had to duck when you were out.
We had a funny moment, didn't it? Unfortunately, I've had to get some hearing aids this last 6 months. I've been struggling with it for 7 years and finally admitted that I'm going deaf. And that happened because I used to be in the taxi going into town with Les, Nick and Lauren in the back of the car, and they'd be talking to me. I didn't have a clue what they were on about. And I suddenly went, do you know what? I've got to do something about this. Anyway, I got these hearing aids, and I'm with Stella. I said, shall I take my jacket off and just have a shirt on rather than just having this jacket? He said, yeah, do it. And obviously I hadn't kicked one of my hearing aids out of my ear. And I get sat down having a glass of wine, and I went, oh my God, I've lost one of my hearing aids. Thankfully, I had a tracker on it, and we found it, didn't we, Stel, just outside York Minster?
I think you're adding a lot of emphasis to the word we, because I found it, technically.
Yeah, you did, actually, yeah. But I wasn't too worried, was I? I had my glass of wine first before we started to go looking for it.
Legend over here, sorted it out. But I think you also realised it wasn't too far away. I think you'd got to 3-4 feet away from it. Like, what a lot of people have been saying to me lately is, would you like to come and take photos at my shop? I'll pay you. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm not really a photographer. Yeah, but we've seen your photos and they're really good. And I'm like, look, this isn't my thing, like doing it for people.
I know he superimposed my face on the body of a fat bloke to make me look strange. It's not very fair that he's doing stuff like that.
No, I have not. I'm not a photoshopper. And what I say to everybody is, if the photos are crap, don't blame the camera.
Well, I'm much thinner in real life. I just want to say that.
So one thing I'd like to ask us all, just before we sort of start clocking off, is, we've got three fish and chips for the year winners here. One that tried and failed, and that was me, by the way, David. And then you still, and then you still try. Obviously, I guess are you entering again, or are you done now, David? Or are you still? Are you not sure?
I'm done.
Oh, he's done. What do you reckon, ladies and gents? Could we encourage him to do it, or should we not?
Tell me why.
There's only so much emotional energy that you can put in to something, and the biggest issue that I've got is the feedback gives you no direction of travel to fix anything. And I think the amount of the 7 months worth of the cycle that you're going to have to make yourself available for. There's other things I want to do with my time. I've had 2 goes at it. We top 10. I was hoping to get placed, didn't get placed for, whatever reason. I wasn't obviously clearly good enough. But I don't want to be one of those guys that just makes the numbers up. There's no progress, and the feedback I've got, we got to top 10, so there's no point giving feedback or listening to feedback for the thing that got you from 40 to 20, because it's irrelevant because I've done it. So, but the job interview, basically at the end, I don't think I did particularly well in, and it's probably not my environment. To be fair, it's all down to me at the end of the day, I think. But it's a huge investment emotionally as well. And you might be able to tell me this, David. I mean, did when we've sort of done anything in terms of, my previous job, I was a software engineer, so there was lots of moving parts to the teams that we worked with. So, and I was a small cog in a fairly big wheel, so everything had to be planned in advance, and everything had to work, and it was like the gears had to come together, all mesh. And so I like planning. I like to know if I'm going to be on a call in 3 or 4 months' time. And the last interview call, and I appreciate that the NFF's got the awards people have got a monumental task, getting 10 people together on the same day with what were 10 or so judges. But it landed on the first day of the kids' holidays. So we were going away, and we cancelled it to be there so we could be on the Zoom call. It's just it was unfortunate that if we'd have known 6 months previous that we got an email saying you are on a Zoom call at 11 o'clock, Jeff Whitehead's going to be on at 9 o'clock, fair enough. At least you've invited us to that, but you will be on at 11 o'clock on this day. If you're not on that day, you're not in. And so so we cancelled basically what we were going to do. We just cancelled it, and I just think it's you're looking back, it's just a little bit sad that we were going away for a week, and we had to push it back. Well, we cancelled it completely for that, and I just think if we'd have seen that date, if you got a list saying, if you get to top 20, you're going to have to commit these days, and these days. And then if you get to top 10, you need to block this day out, this day, and this day out. But it's like, there didn't seem to be much forward planning. It was like a bit of a knee jerk. Oh, by the way, next round, here's what you're doing. So I don't know. So I just, I like to know what I'm doing with my time. And And if I'm not seeing an easy way to progress, because at the end of the day, it's down to the personalities that's involved in the judging and the personalities that's, of my personality. And if those aren't gelling together, then I've got other things I need to do with my time, and just making the numbers up is not one of them.
Obviously, the Federation has just taken this over, so they're learning as well. And I think this year will be a lot better than last year, and as the last year was a lot better than the first year. I wouldn't give up, because the way I look at it is when Seafish were doing it, and I think you guys will agree, Mark and Kelly, that we didn't have any time frame. You just knew they were the cut-off times. That's the bit about it. They're gonna, they're coming in. It's like the classic phone the shop at 2 minutes to 2, and go, "Are you still open? Can you take an order?" That's the sort of thing they used to do. Even like when Seafish were running it, you didn't even really know what was going on when you did your interview. You knew the day you were going to go there. So I think really even Seafish, it was quite loose in timings. Do you remember that, Kelly?
I suppose it depends what you want to dedicate, and it kind of brings us back full circle where we started, really. It depends what you want to dedicate to it, and there's no right or wrong answer for that. We just knew that from January, whenever it was we submitted our application, through to the end of August, beginning of September, that was it. I mean, we didn't take holidays for 10 years or whatever it was, but that's not necessarily, as I've said, that might not have been the right path for us in the first place. So I don't think you should ever give up in terms of why are you doing it in the first place? And I know that's to win. I know that's may sound like a ridiculous question, but why are you doing it in the first place? And yeah.
Well, I think where I'm at now at this moment in time is, I'm not going to say never, but I've got lots and lots of stuff that I need to do over the next few years, and my kids are growing up, and I don't want to lose those memories. And being involved in the competition, I'm not one of these people that can commit 50% in, 50% out. I am fully in. And, and for the last 2 years, we've lived, breathed and eaten, and being obsessed about every little aspect of the business, and probably overly obsessed, to be honest. I would thoroughly recommend anyone. It's been absolutely fabulous. We've pushed it forward. This year, we've not really, we got top 10 2023. We had a 30% kick up in trade, which was fabulous. And that settled down to, I think we retained about 15% in those numbers, which I don't know any other way of increasing your business by that amount in a year. I've never experienced that, that shot. This year, we've not seen much growth at all because there's nothing new, but we're not second or third. We're still top 10. There's not, and our local papers really haven't picked up on it because it's the same logo just with a 4 on it as a 3. So there's nothing new to report, really. So in our territory, I guess we've probably captured all the customers that want sort of really good fish and chips as opposed to fish and chips at a price, which... that's really well served in Doncaster. When you see an advert for the shops that say cheapest in Doncaster, I just think that's probably not an ambition I want to have, to be fair. We want to have the best of everything and good serves, good quality.
To add to what you were saying, though, David, I think the fact that you got to see your son swim, that for me is priceless. I don't think you can replace that. And I think absolutely. And I think those memories... are the ones, if I could change anything over the last 20 odd years, that's what I would be, because I didn't get to teach my kids to swim.
But when you went to London, when you did the sort of old style, Dragon's Den sort of thing, it was quite intimidating, wasn't it? There's Marcus Coleman right at the end, as the timekeeper going like this when you've got a minute left, and you've got all your peers around you and journalists and whatever. That top 10 were all on 0 points, and it was about going in there and selling your wares. And why should we, or why should I, or why should my shop be UK's number one? And I suppose it did come down to that, but it's what you say and everything about that. So I think what you should look at is top 10. Is you're all on the same. To get to top 10 is a hell of an achievement.
Yeah, sure.
And you all are there. Then there's something from there that elevates you to the positions. I don't know what Mark and Kelly think to that. But
I'll just finish off what I'm saying. The point I didn't make was, I'm never saying never. I'd love to, at some point, I'm sure I'll jump back in. and give it another go. But I just need to do other things for a bit and just have a little bit of a decompression and a break from the business. So, because I find it really emotionally draining, to be honest. And it certainly drives the wife to distraction when that's all I talk about is what went wrong and what I can do and what's this, and it's just awards obsessed. So that's probably my personality. I do get very involved, and I get very focused, and I get sort of driven, and I just need to just step away because I've got other things I need to do, and other things other businesses that we're involved in that need some attention that I need to give it some time. So
I think it's very admirable to be able to step away like that. I really do. I think that's great. I think to be able to put yourself and your family and your other stuff first is great. I really do.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's not going anywhere. We always come back. We might not even get top 20, but we'll give it a shot. I'll just keep quiet if we fail.
Excellent.
So I can't. Also, the other thing is if we do go backwards, I don't know. Has anyone ever had the experience of actually being top 10 then being top 20? I mean, is that has that not happened?
My competition journey was the first time I entered, I made the top 10 and lost out to Les Manning, and then I took 3 years off. I took my feedback, took 3 years off, and then came back again, and I didn't make the top 10. So I only made the top 20, and I lost out to the winner, which was Andy Thrasavulu in 2004. And
Mark, wasn't the old format regional based?
Yeah, he was.
So if you had two strong shops in that region, only one's getting through, but you might have been a lot better than a shop that was in, say, Norfolk, which didn't have much.
I was up against a guy who was 40 miles away. And he went on to win the whole thing. So the second time I entered, I didn't even make the top 10. So then I took 2 more years off, and then I came back and won it. And then I wasn't allowed to enter the year after I won. And then I made the top 10 again when I was allowed to enter again. And John Harmon said to me, "You're not going to win this." I said, "Well, why am I here? Why am I here being judged? Why have you allowed me to make the top 10 when and now you're telling me I've got no chance? I'm not allowed to win it." And and when I went in to do my presentation, he said to the judges in the room, "This guy's already won it. He's not going to win it today." Right. So I never entered after that. And
so, do you think then, guys, should it be like the FA Cup or the Premier League? Should you be allowed to keep entering? Should that be a thing, or should it be you've won? Should be clear as day. You've won once. You're never allowed to enter again.
Yeah, I think they should do that. Really, I never used to. Right up until very recently, I thought you should be able to win it multiple times. But now I actually think, and this is because of this man down in the bottom left-hand corner, Mr. Miller. I think he's changed my opinion on it, because I think once you've won it, you should do your year, serve your time, and stand aside. And I never used to think that, because I wanted to be the first person ever to win it twice. But what I do now is I help people in the competition. I've been on the judging side as well, so I've enjoyed being a judge. But now, last year I had 3rd place in restaurant. Yeah. I've had top 3 in multiple operator this year. So I'm helping other people do well in the competition. I'd love to win for somebody else's shop, but it's so hard when you can only do so much in somebody else's shop. It's not my shop. I can't go in there and change everything, but I've changed enough to make top 3 in restaurant and multiple operator. So, I'm still living my competition dream through other people's shops.
Well, and I guess you can still enter other award categories.
I won't.
I'm just saying though, like like Jeff Whitehead won the main one, and then a year later came back to win the environmental one. So there is other avenues to go down. So I was going to say before, like, should there be a mechanism in place that allows for the winners to carry on entering something? Well, but there is, because there is other awards anyway.
There is.
Yeah,
there is. Yeah.
Because David.
But I don't know why. If I won it, if I was fish and chip shop of the year, I just think I would leave it at that. It's it's not rest on your laurels, but I don't think I could have the motivation.
Have a break and come back.
Probably because you'd be that sodding busy. Yeah, I mean, come back. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to just reassess. But as I say, not want to go into too much detail. We've got there's what the other things I'm involved in. We've got there's an opportunity over the next 18 months to do very well out of this thing, and that's what I'm exploring now. And I can't do both. There's not enough hours in the day to do both. No. So something will give, but we can always come back to the awards, whereas the opportunity in the next 18 months probably will vanish after that.
For me, I think Matt knows what I'm talking about. Is I think once you've won it, you are actually on that cup, and you're there, aren't you? And you are known. Those that are people that are interested in the awards. Not everybody even looks at the awards, but those that are in the awards and like it, they know you've won. And then I think for the award, it's your duty to keep that shop as good as you can for people to still look up to it, and then to inspire other shops to have a go at that and attend the awards as well. Still be around and looking at it and congratulating people and being there. But once you've won it, why do you need to win it again? You're just trying to prove something that might get people's backs up as well. Go away gracefully and just go, I've won it. I don't need to win it again, but I'm there for anybody else. And this is what the award's done for me. My shop still, I believe, is good. And I believe my shop
I love
is
judging
so much
it.
better than when I won it.
When I'm not helping somebody else, I love judging it.
And what I've learned.
I just think it becomes,
Judging.
I don't know, as I say, I think ego probably then kicks in. No disrespect, Mark. I'm not saying you're egotistical, not at all saying that. But I just think ego kicks in. It's then wanting to prove and prove and prove. And where's the end of that, It's just nice to give somebody else a chance, I think, to shine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I want to wrap this baby up, guys. So have we missed anything? Anything anybody wants to say?
No, I think you've made my job of talking about the competition with David quite easy. I'm looking forward to that conversation, and with Kelly and Tim too. The three that I've done so far have just been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. There's so much gold to take out of those three conversations. People will love them, and I don't talk very much at all, which is a bonus.
Yeah, because you're quite shy, Mark.
I know when to keep my mouth shut. It's only taken me 52 years, but
maybe you can send me some tips on. Yeah,
I'm very complicated. There's a lot to unpack. There's a few things today I didn't speak on at all because it's too complex. It would take too long.
Well, we're going to have lots of time to unpack all of these things, and so this is the one of many, and we're going to have lots of time to unpack these things. And we look forward to doing these roundtables. And I think if people are listening to this and they want us to talk about something, they can also send those things in. Because I know a lot of people can say, "Oh, but you didn't talk about this. Oh, but you didn't talk about that." And so if they do let us know, then we can talk about it because we're not clairvoyant.
How do they let you know?
How will they let us know?
Normally you point to a link now.
No, they can just message us. Someone's got some of our details somewhere. Surely.
Someone just get hold of us.
You need to set up a new Dear Stelios button on your website.
Yes, there's
Dear Stel.
Dear Stel.
Dear Stel.
Agony Uncle.
I was listening to your podcast.
We do usually get messages from people, and sometimes they're complimentary, and other times they're not.
Can you remember when you used to read the papers? So when people used to write in on these opinion pieces, and it says "angry from."
Yeah.
There was no name; it was just "angry from Exton," "angry from," Birmingham. So you might get some.
Or maybe we'll get some of those. Yeah, exactly. But
might do.
I'd like to say thank you to you all once again. This conversation has been fantastic. One thing we're not going to do is work to time frames. We're going to work to where the conversation goes. So I've said this to all of you, when you're doing a podcast, don't worry about the time. If the conversation's great, carry on. If it's short but great, that's fine. If it's long but great, carry on. What we don't want is long and boring. That's something we don't want. Just keep it fresh, keep it good, and hopefully people will keep coming back.
Hope so.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Talking a
Stel.
bit.
Enjoyed
Nice
that.
talking
Lovely.
to you guys as well, and nice to be in such illuminated company.
I'm going to laugh a lot with you, David. I can see it already.
Oh.